Before Yasi clobbered us, we were aware of the fact that the mahogany gliders were here. We lost approximately 1,000 trees on the course. Now that was a significant blow to the habitat of the glider, obviously. I mean, their gliding distance is a maximum of approximately 30 metres, I believe. There are areas now where they don't have that distance. Yeah, when one of the trees was taken down and a mahogany glider was discovered in the hollows within the tree, it certainly reinvigorated interest in it again, with National Parks and Wildlife and Terrain becoming involved. And it also became of particular interest to the golf club that we could maintain some sort of protection for them.
Prior to the cyclone, the estimates were between 1,500 to 2,000 animals remained in the wild. And I guess we really don't know what's happened to the population. They've got a very limited range, the smallest range of any mammal in Australia.
And the habitat of this endangered species, that was already fragmented and vulnerable, was right in the path of the eye of the cyclone.
We want to make their habitat as natural as possible. There's been a revegetation process occurring on the course, with Terrain coming in and very thankfully providing hundreds of trees. They will be of some significance for the gliders in years to come. It'll just ensure that we can keep them here on the course.
Queensland Parks and Wildlife Service have been doing further research into the glider situation.
We're off to Mullis Creek. We're installing some traps to see if we can pick up our mahogany gliders that we've been monitoring since the cyclone. One of the big impacts of the cyclone has been the removal of blossom this year, that our eucalypts aren't flowering. With that being absent, we're a little bit unsure as to what the mahogany glider is able to switch to find and source for its food. We use a syrup mixture which simulates sap as our bait for our mahogany gliders when we do our surveys.
By trapping and checking on the animals, they are trying to ascertain the impact of the cyclone. Are the gliders still there? What is their condition? Are they breeding? And are they getting enough food during the recovery?
The mahogany glider, it goes around and marks its territory, its home range. What we do, it's a little bit novel, but we go through with this fragrance and we mark our trees. We think that also helps just to entice our gliders to come to our traps, because there's a little bit of a competition, a little bit of a foreign scent, a strong scent, that the gliders will come to and mark their own over this fragrance. So this is Calvin Klein contradiction. This is based on serious research though. We know, for example, with the jaguar, that they use Calvin Klein's Obsession for Men to draw the jaguars into their camera stations.
Findings have shown that the mahogany glider is highly mobile and needs to be able to move freely over its home range. There is a limit to how far an animal can glide between trees. Wide infrastructure corridors such as roads, railways and power lines can present barriers to movement.
One of the locations that we're just about to come to is a site with Powerlink that we've installed crossing poles. And they're very short and squat, and it has two cross arms on the pole. These act as launching points for the mahogany glider to be able to hop across. There's also a glider's retreat, which is a temporary refuge for the mahogany glider as it's crossing through this point. To monitor and investigate how often and frequently the mahogany gliders are using these poles, we've installed camera stations. These are remote cameras, so they have an infrared beam with a sensitivity trigger, so as the glider's moving through to visit our food station, the camera very quietly takes images of those mahogany gliders as it's entering the trap. The date stamp will tell us how frequently the mahogany glider is visiting that station. The areas that we're really concerned about for mahogany gliders aren't really the areas inside the national park. It's the very narrow wildlife corridors and linkages that we have. These tend to be very linear, very narrow, and they're the ones that are a bit more vulnerable to the impacts of the cyclones.
It's reaffirmed the biggest issues we've got, and that's connectivity and this fragmentation of habitat. I think we need to start talking about individual trees making a difference, because I think that's probably easier for some people to understand too, that sometimes it's a single tree that can make the difference between whether gliders can get from one place to another.
We work with Wildlife Preservation Society of Queensland and with Terrain NRM to identify those wildlife corridors, to contact the property owners to see if there's ways that we can improve or enhance those corridors.
Gliders rely on hollows in trees to make their dens. These can take 100 years or more to form, so any trees with hollows need to be protected. The Den Box program aims to provide temporary refuge for the gliders.
In many areas there aren't enough dens for them. Certainly after the cyclone we don't have enough data yet to find out whether we'd actually assisted them or whether the awareness raising was the major part of that. There's going to be some more studies done in the coming months to see just how many of these boxes are occupied. But at the time that the cyclone hit we still weren't sure what the best designs were. We'd had enough science done to know the ones we were building weren't good enough, they get too hot and they get too cold, because nothing beats a real den for these gliders.
It has some insulation inside to help protect and cool the box from the very hot tropical weather that we have. It has a very narrow entrance here, which is about the width of the glider's head, so it really likes to just be able to squeeze into its hollow, its refuge.
People from all over Australia decided that they wanted to help, and individuals that have driven for 3 or 4 hours to deliver one den box to us. It's been indicative of just how much people really do care about their wildlife. There have been the men's sheds groups, the RSPCA. So I suppose as much as anything else, for those of us that feel as if we work in isolation, it's been tremendously helpful. I think for the government it's been an illustration of just how much people really do care about their environment and about their wildlife. And we are in the process of moving forward with the managers at the golf course to establish information that will help others understand how important those trees are. Using this as something really special for the community. So the signage going in that will be educational. And for visitors, it adds another dimension to their understanding of how special the wet tropics are, and especially these coastal forests. Because we hear so much about rainforest and how special the rainforest is, and quite often these lowland coastal woodlands and all of the species that rely totally on them that can't live in rainforest are overlooked. But I think it makes me very aware of just how lucky we are to live in a place like this. It's seriously special.